Hello, my fellow busy people. So last week we got into some of the issues that people experience when they're scheduling an office move for their company. And we have created a checklist to make your next move a breeze. Let's dive right in. Okay, so this document available at Offisavvy.com in our resource center is a comprehensive guide and checklist for planning your next office move. So our first page is up here. It's going to go into detail in every step. And then when you're ready to start on the project, you're going to want to go to pages 9 through 11, which are the office move scheduling checklist. There's some areas for you to fill out key pieces of information, as well as reminders as to some of the steps you need to accomplish each task. What I want to do is run through this with you because I've seen a lot of these checklists online. There's a bunch of them out there. Just a Google search, you can find about 50 of them. We wanted to create something that showed you how to go through the process and kind of provide a little bit of context for why it's important to do things in this order. So starting with step one, a team meeting or a meeting of the minds with everybody who's going to be involved in the move is crucial, just to get your basic details out on the table so that you can move on and start making more definite plans. Right now you're looking at the dates, the addresses, and trying to understand as best you can where you're going, how soon you're going to be moving, and what kind of vendors you may need in order to facilitate the move. Once you've had that meeting, the next thing to do is to engage your vendors at the outset. So you may have a moving company that you already work with. In that event, you want to find out if they have scheduling available. If you're going to start shopping, now is the time to do it. You can't start too early on this. Contacting moving companies and going through with them, finding the best provider for what you're looking for. In the list, we have several ways to get started with that and some tips on getting started in the right direction with vendors as you go through the process. So step 3 is to confirm where and when you're moving. I know this seems obvious, but oftentimes you're stuck in some lease negotiations, or you're still trying to find a place, or you haven't really figured out the date yet. The more you can zero this in, the better. There's some things that you just won't be able to do until you've at least narrowed down the week of the move and the address where you're going to be moving to. If you're late in the process and you still haven't nailed down some of these details, but you have an idea, you can start to talk to your chosen vendor or the potential vendors about this and keep in contact with them as you get closer to the move to make sure there's still availability up until the day that you either choose a moving company or book the date. So once you have your destination figured out, step 4 and 5 kind of go together. You're going to get in touch with your building that you're in and the building that you're going to be moving into and work out a few basic requirements with them. First thing, moving restriction and building protection requirements. You want to find out when you can move in and out of this building, what their restrictions are. Does it need to be at night or on a weekend, or are they going to let you move in and out during the day? And what path of travel can you take as you come in and out of the building? The next thing is, how is your moving company going to need to protect that path of travel? Most moving companies will have some basic protection, but some buildings have very specific requirements, and you want to make sure you know that expectation ahead of time. Oftentimes you have to schedule the use of the elevator and the dock area. One way or another, you're either going to want to know what they need from you to schedule that, or at least what their policies are in terms of using their docks and their loading areas. And lastly, this gets forgotten a lot, but find out your insurance requirements. Oftentimes your building will have a one-page sheet or a sample of the certificate of insurance that you can send to your moving company and make sure they get that filled out, sent back to the building. As you're shopping for movers, you're going to want to, at the same time you're looking at are they available for your schedule, you also want to make sure they have the insurance that's going to be required for both the origin and destination buildings. Down in step 9, you're going to be circling back with the building to actually reserve the dock and loading area and inform them of your move dates. But right now, you just want to find out what their policies are in these 3 areas. So step number 6, this is where you and your team decide whether this is going to need to be a daytime, weekday, or after-hour weekend move. If your building is going to require a nighttime move, then this isn't much of a decision. But if you have the option to do it during the day or after hours, it's going to come down to making that decision internally. It's really oftentimes comes down to a cost calculation. If closing the office for a day is going to result in you losing a ton of money, or it's going to disrupt things, you're probably going to want to do it at night. However, if that isn't an issue, moving at night or on the weekends tends to be more expensive. Therefore, if you can do it during the week, during the day, all the better. Step number 7. So this is where you pick up from that original team meeting and you get with your team to nail down some definite decisions as far as the dates and the timing of the move. This is also a great time to figure out some of the fine points of the schedule with your team. You may, for instance, have a department which can't afford extra downtime and needs to be moved and back up before the rest of the company. Oftentimes the IT team can only do their part of the move after hours when the network's shut down. You want to get together those requirements along with your desired schedule in detail with dates and start times so that you can move on and start trying to schedule this with the moving company and the buildings. So step number 8, shopping for and choosing a moving company. So you may have already done this by now, but if you've been shopping along the way as you went through a few of these other steps, now's the time to narrow it down, pick a company, and make sure you have somebody ready to call and or to sign the quote so that you can go through step number 9. All right, step number 9, scheduling with your moving company. So far, you've been doing a lot of prep work. You have your moving company chosen. You've got dates figured out. Now it's time to call the buildings and call the moving company and get them all locked into a date and a start time. I recommend doing this at the same time so that one doesn't get booked up while you've already scheduled the other one. But otherwise, when you finish this step, you should have the schedule confirmed on both ends. Okay, so step number 10, the planning meeting. For a small move, a quick phone call should be fine. But for a larger project, you want to get in person or on a Zoom call with the stakeholders in your company, as well as the planners at the moving company, and run through the sequence of the move and iron out any details so far that haven't been addressed. Most moving companies will offer to do a planning meeting, but whether yours does or not, you want to insist on this because I've never done a planning meeting where something didn't come up that everybody missed. Step number 11, communicate the plan. So you had your planning meeting, more or less everything's in place. You want to make sure you get this across to all of your staff. Oftentimes, a group email is sent out asking everybody to acknowledge. Other companies will do an in-person meeting with the whole company where they give everybody a chance to ask questions and lay out the basic plan of the move. Things to think about here are if you have packing or labeling instructions that have been provided for your mover, you can pass that out. Reiterate priorities and any last-minute delegation that needs to be done for items in the planning process that haven't been addressed. By the end of this meeting or throughout this communication, everybody at the company should know what's going on and what's expected of them. Okay, so last but not least, scheduling and revisions. So hopefully you can skip this step. But if not, don't panic. Sometimes plans change, and what's important here is that if something changes, let the moving company and the building know as quickly as possible. The moving company, if the date is changing, may need to work out different things among their staff and sort of regroup. Whereas the building, you want to make sure that the new time or date is available. If you're planning a big move, this can become additionally important as you want to make sure and get out in front of this so that your moving company can reschedule, can adjust their manpower and their resources. And you don't want to do it at the last minute if possible. What you want to try to avoid is having this happen at the very last minute because that can really disrupt things, especially on a large project. All right, so that's about it. The first area here, we have a bunch of great tips for each step to help you through the process. whereas the last 3 pages are your actual checklist. This is an interactive checklist. You can fill it in electronically or print it out. We've included some key pieces of information that you might want to keep all in one place, like as you're scheduling these meetings, your building contacts, your moving company contacts, as well as a checklist to tack this stuff off as you move down the line. So if you're like me, there's nothing quite like getting these checks checked off. As always, if you have questions or scheduling issues that aren't addressed in this checklist, give us a call or reach out to us or comment below, and we will do our best to answer your questions in future videos or reach out to you directly. Thanks a lot.